If you want to get a job as a React developer, you need to know what the DOM is and what the virtual DOM is and how they relate. If you look this up on the internet, you're going to get a lot of confusing answers. I'm going to explain it to you by using a very concrete, real-world example. And at the end of this video, you will easily understand why the virtual DOM exists. Let's do it. So the first thing we need to understand is what the DOM is. The DOM stands for Document Object Model. And this right here is a representation of the DOM. So it's also called a DOM tree because, as you can see, it is a tree-like structure. So if you look closely at this, you'll see some things that look like HTML. So when we create a website, we write a bunch of HTML. This is human readable. We can write this. It's very easy for humans to understand. This HTML that us humans write then gets converted into the DOM. The DOM is what the browser reads. So the browser looks at the DOM, and then depending on what the DOM has, it will reflect that on the screen. So we write the HTML, the browser converts this to the DOM, and then it uses the DOM to then determine what to show on the screen. So let's say we write some JavaScript that appends a div to the body. So inside of the body, there's now another div. That JavaScript is changing the DOM. The HTML doesn't change whatsoever. The HTML is just the starting blueprint to create the DOM. And then once it's created, you can pretty much throw the HTML away. However, if you make a change, it will be reflected here in the dev tools, but this is just so we can see what's going on. When a change actually happens, it's not updating the HTML. The HTML is just the starting point. And from that point forward, the DOM is the only thing it looks at. So when you add something to the DOM, it's going to update the DOM, and then it's going to repaint the page. And every time you do this, it's very expensive, which means it takes a lot of resources and it takes a long time. It takes a long time for computers because in reality, this takes like less than a second. So every time we update the DOM, a lot of stuff happens. So let's say there's a website and you want to add something to your cart. So what's going to happen? There's going to be three things that happen. It's going to change the button name from saying add to cart to already in cart. This is going to update the DOM and repaint the page. There's also going to be a badge icon that has the total amount of items in your cart, and we're going to increment this by 1. So this is another change to the DOM, and this repaints the page yet again. We're also going to have a third thing where it shows the cart total. This then gets updated and repaints the page. So with one click of the button, we're updating the DOM 3 times and repainting the page 3 times. This is very inefficient. We want to click this button and then have all the changes take place with one repaint. So what you can do is wrap all of this code in this right here. And so this way, this only updates the DOM once and repaints it once. This is a much better way to do it. But as your app grows, this becomes very cumbersome and it's hard to maintain. So this is where the virtual DOM comes into play. So right here, we have the real DOM. We know every time we update this, this is an expensive thing. We want to do this as few times as possible. So React has the virtual DOM, which is basically a copy of this, except it's all a bunch of JavaScript objects, and it's very easy to change. You can erase the whole thing, create an entire new one very quickly. So we can change this all we want, we don't care. So this right here is imperative code. We say specifically, do this, do this. We say each individual step. With React, it is declarative code. We write in a much simpler way that we want to change the name of this button, that we want to change the total in the cart, and we want to change the price of the cart. So we write it in a very user-friendly way, and then React is going to update the virtual DOM. And once it does that, it uses the diffing algorithm to see the difference between the real DOM and the virtual DOM. And then React is going to automatically behind the scenes write a bunch of code like this that's very performant. And then it's going to update the real DOM with one repaint for us. So using the virtual DOM makes it so that we can just solely focus on making a good looking UI. And then React using the virtual DOM is going to automatically write the best code possible for us. So just know that updating the DOM is expensive. Updating the virtual DOM is very cheap. We write code to update the virtual DOM, and then behind the scenes, React is going to write the JavaScript code that is optimized to update the real DOM as few times as possible. This is one of the reasons why React is very fast. So there it is. You learned something? Subscribe. You want to learn some more? Watch this video right here. See you next time.